Nate, welcome to the podcast, brother. It's good to have you on.
Honored, Steve. Looking forward to it. A lot of good things I'm hearing about you, my friend.
Hey, I appreciate that. No, it's when you reached out through social media and made the connection. It was awesome to just put it all together because for years I've been training in active shooters and active assailant situations, and one of the first things that came up was your organization, your company, and what you guys have been doing. And now to have it come full circle and actually connect a face and to understand at greater length what you're doing and what we're ultimately going to talk about today on the show as it relates to emergency preparedness and active assailant situations and notification procedures. It's a real honor to have you on, so I appreciate that.
We're humbled, yeah, and excited to get the word out. Absolutely, Steve.
Awesome. Well, Nate, would you, before we get into any depth, would you just give a little overview and a brief kind of introduction of yourself and what you're doing right now, and then we'll dive into a little more depth here in a few minutes.
Yeah, happy to do so for your audience, and you got a lot of listeners out there, not nationwide but worldwide. So, congrats to you on that. And
Thank
kudos
you.
to you and your team. Yeah, for you tuning in, my name is Nate McVicker. I'm a 23-year veteran law enforcement officer and president and founder of a company called Guard911 and its subsidiary Hero911. We'll get into that later, but it's really tackling our country's number one act of domestic terrorism. It's been coined an active shooter. We in the police world know that it's active killers, and there's one common conclusion at every single one of these senseless acts of violence. That is a shorter police notification time. You didn't hear me say that, not response time. A shorter police notification time can and will save lives. So that's what we've done. We started this in 2013. We received 2 U.S. patents on this. We awarded a contract here recently from the state of Florida through the Department of Education, where every school, Florida's done great. They're the first state out there that's actually mandated a mobile safety alert system. That's exactly what Hero911 and Guard911 is, that we'll get into during our discussion, Steve. They've mandated every school implement something because they get it. They understand this viable threat. And we're starting to see other states emulate this. So again, we're happy to be here, get the word out there with our team of consultants. And again, how can we help out against these senseless and tragic sense of violence we're seeing?
Yeah, and man, I mean, how timely is it right now? And I hate to say it, but we could have probably said that at any moment in time in the past 10 years. But in particular, as we are starting to move out of COVID, particularly in certain states, in terms of the lockdowns and protocols and things, and seeing children back to school, seeing our public soft target areas more exposed at this point, and what I'd like to drive home, and what I know you'll be able to speak to here is something that we have to realize is knowledge diminishes fear. And we don't have to be fearful as a free society, but we need to prepare and have the knowledge that we can go out with a level of confidence to be in our communities and take care of each other and enjoy life. I mean, at the end of the day, the freedom that we experience in this country is second to none, if not the best. And so we don't want to share the topics that we're going to talk about today for people to actually shrink back and be concerned that there's so much evil in the world. In fact, there is so much good in the midst of the evil that exists, but we need to be able to say, hey, I have the know-how and I can speed up my processing time by knowing certain things to put in place and employ during an emergent situation.
Yeah, absolutely. And you keyed on a key word there, Steve, is evil. And one of my favorite quotes is by Albert Einstein. And I don't have it verbatim written down here, but it goes something along the lines of, and you can look it up, of course, but it's a great quote. It makes sense of what we're doing here. And Albert Einstein says, the world's a dangerous place. It's filled with evil. It's not because of the people that are evil themselves. It's because of the people who don't do anything about it. We've got to do something about this. These active killers have systematically and methodically planned these attacks out, if weeks, if not months in advance. When we teach around the country, we're affiliated with the FBI National Academy, a lot of other associations around there, Sheriff Association, Police Association, and we're talking. We just got back from Iowa doing a retrainer with the Iowa chapter of the FBI National Academy, and they understand the Bible threat. We know, in the schools, in the police world, our minds consumed with COVID talk for the last year and a half, rightfully so. We want to figure, how are we going to get our kids, and I got 3 of them myself, How are we going to get their butts back into school?
Yeah.
The same thing with work. How are we going to get our people back in our corporations? Our mind is rightfully consumed with COVID talk. Again, rightfully so. However, we definitely need to understand as a community, we cannot undermine workplace or school violence. Because again, these killers who plan their attack out weeks, if not months in advance, COVID's done one thing. It's given them ample time. COVID's been COVID has been on their side. They have ample time to plan. So when the world does open back up, we hope we're wrong. We hope our consultants are wrong. But we've got to continue to deter, continue to see something, say something, and God forbid this happens again in our country, like we saw just a couple of days ago at the casino in Wisconsin, and then Georgia, and then Colorado. And unfortunately, we forgot the last 5 active killing situations, the massacres that have taken place. But again, it all comes down to we need to be prepared as first responders, as dispatchers, as the public, and we've got to notify police as soon as possible, because it all comes down to instantaneous notification for their subsequent response time. We've got to change the way we're doing things.
100%, man. Well said. Well said. Well, we're going to get into that notification piece in a minute, but I got to know your background, getting into law enforcement. What point in time did you decide that, hey, I want to go out there, I want to hold the line, and I want to protect my community? Can you tell us a little bit of that story about when you were a young man, or maybe later into adolescence, when you made this decision to go and protect your community?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Actually, rewind 23 years, call it 23 and a half years. I was in college for business, and I had no desire or aspiration to join the police force of any type. I had a couple friends that were in the police world, and they did a good job, very proactive. They worked the field of narcotics, which I said, wow, let me try this hat on and see. Kind of educated through them and put that hat on. And I said, you know what? Give it a shot. I think I like this police world. And I put my application in. I was lucky enough to go through all the steps, and I had a great career. Still have about 4 years left or so. I've loved every day of it. And majority of my career, I worked what's called interdiction, narcotics out there. We pulled some big loads of dope off the street, a lot of weapons off the street, and a lot of currency seizures from illicit activities. So I pride my team. They did a fantastic job. I had a good ride with that and enjoyed every minute of it. I was lucky enough to actually teach across country for the federal government, for El Paso Intelligence Center, for the Drug Interdiction Assistance Program, and build that network. And that's really what transpired in 2013 to Guard911. Was really due to the network. That's all policing is. You know this, Steve, is we're a family, brothers and sisters. That thin blue line out there means so much out there. And we know, we're under attack right now, and we're going to defend ourselves. We're going to stand right. I'm going to stand right by you, Steve. I know you're my brother. I've never met you. You're going to stand right by me, and we're going to lock arms. And enough's enough. We're going to do the right thing out here. And it's time we put our foot forward and do the right thing. We're going to continue to do the right thing out here. And we have such a strong brotherhood in this country still. A lot of people don't think so, but still, we have so many people retire and resign, and hard to want to get on right now to be a police, but we've got to pull things together. We need the support from legislation, of course. We need the support from our FOP, from our brotherhood, to know that this is a family. And fast forward again to that creation of Guard911, Hero911, the biggest part of this family is the network. And we'll get into that when we talk about the powerful established network of Hero911.
Yeah, 100%. Man, you've absolutely got to see so much in your career. At what point did you first have your maybe a more personal exposure to the active killing and active assailant world as it was emerging, even early in your career with Columbine happening? It sounds like right at the onset of your career. When did you first actually confront that and your focus start to shift of, hey, there have to be these options and there has to be a broader education base, even for law enforcement, let alone the public? And ultimately leading up to, creating what you've created with Hero911.
Yeah, it's good you mentioned Columbine. We know that these massacres have happened well before Columbine, but Columbine was really the universal strategy of police, the way we changed things, right? We no longer set up a inner perimeter, outer perimeter, wait for SWAT, because again, pre-Columbine, we tried to negotiate the situation. That doesn't work. Again, systematically and methodically, you're planning these senseless acts of violence out. They're looking for one thing, these killers. And we all know what that is, Steve. Your audience knows what it is. as gruesome as it is and as sick as it is for me to say this, they're looking for a body count. They want to be on the cover of a magazine holding that trophy up saying, what happened to that other shooting? I don't remember that. I just got the world record here. We've got to stop that as police. So you mentioned Columbine. That was when I was in the academy. In 1999, when I was in the police academy, we had a TAC officer came in, started yelling and preaching, of course, like they do, trying to put the fear in God with, you had that come to Jesus talk. And they said, this just happened. And everyone pretty much turned pale. That was in the middle of the academy. And it wasn't then where I really understood it. Fast forward a few years, I've had some kids. I've had 3 of them, happily married. And wow, it's like we've had so many senseless acts of violence, from church to workplace violence to schools. And what we're doing as a police is not working. Yeah, we've changed since Columbine. Now it's the first officers going in, waiting for maybe that other officer to get there. We're seeing that doesn't work. Now it's you get there, rush down the gunfire, eliminate the threat, and then rescue people. We're seeing that doesn't work. Now a great training program out of there called Alert, which you probably heard of it, in San Marcos, Texas. Their premier training organization on active shooters. Now they're teaching a solo officer response, a plainclothes officer response, because guess what? Again, what we're doing in this short amount of time is not working. So I've had my kids, and I thought, I live in a small town. I live in a small town just outside, on the Illinois side, outside of St. Louis, Missouri. There's only 10,000 people in the town I reside in, and there's about 2 or maybe 3 city officers that work at any one given time. God forbid something happened in one of my kids' schools or the community schools. It doesn't matter. My kids are your kids, yours are mine. And we're going to rely on the 3 officers to get dispatched. Hopefully that 911 call is going to ring to the right center, which a lot of times it doesn't, like Sandy Hook. We'll talk about that in a second. Yeah. And then they're going to drop everything. If one of the officers is at county jail 15 miles away, one's on the interstate 5 miles away, and somewhere else is someone unreachable or busy, that's what attributes to this long response time. The reality is, Steve, in the town of 10,000, there's 50 federal, state, and local officers that reside here. A lot of the feds, as you know, don't monitor police radios. Why can't they be privy to our country's #1 act of domestic terrorism, being an active killer? They're going anyhow. They're going to be donning their uniform or donning their TAC vest, and they're going to show up anyhow. It's just too damn late. We've got to get them there as quick as possible. And the world's starting to see that. We're behind the ball with these killers out here. We've got to adapt at immediate notification time. So that's how 2013, we've designed that, and we've pushed hard. Frank DeAngelis, you mentioned Columbine, is on our team. Frank was a principal of Columbine during the 1999 massacre. And we will never say any one of these schools, businesses across the country, churches that have implemented our service that we would have saved a life, shall you have had our service. You'll never hear us say that, of course. But we echo the words of Frank DeAngelis. I wish Columbine would have had a service like this, instant notification to police. Chief Tony Pastisi, instrumental on organizing his team in Parkland to go inside at the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas shooting. Chief Pastisi was the chief of Coral Springs at the time. Kind of the same thing, communication problem there. Chief Pastisi will say, if we would have had this service at Parkland, my officers would have got notified a minute and 30 seconds earlier. The school could have locked down called a code red, 4 minutes earlier to provide situational awareness for everyone. It just gives me the chills and in a sickness. I can almost feel your sensation too. What are we going to do, Steve? We've got to do something.
Yeah, and within these schools, there's already protocols that are in place to help mitigate these situations. Some are very detailed that people aren't able to deal with under amount of stress, and others are trying to get at the notification, but there's maybe not a seamless or universal way to do that. And it might be, hey, I have this idea as this teacher of how to handle this, or this is the point in the school that I'm at and I can't get to a phone or my cell phone for whatever reason. And there's a lot of moving parts. These are complex, right? We're trying to simplify them to best move through them. That's part of the mitigation. And the simpler we can make it, the more effective our response to it. And that's one thing I love about what you created. Well, as we've kind of danced around a little bit, why don't you lay out exactly how you came up with the idea specifically to get an app out there that notifies and targets all of these in a small community like you were mentioning, those 50 officers that aren't on a radio, that don't know. How did you come up with that?
Well, having kids that know a heck of a lot more than technology than I do, of course. And being a cop, not being a total fan of technology. But guess what, Steve? We need it. Our world runs by technology. We need to embrace the world of technology to safeguard our students, and we get that. So I was introduced to my partner, who's a world-renowned, pretty much a technologist, got a great system out there, 33 plus years in technology, and we created this technology that has received 2 patents in the U.S. now, with a police and psychology perspective. We said, hey, to my partner, Tom Swift, I said, Tom, we want to push technology out of the side for a second. This has got to be simple. It's got to be effective, and it's got to run off 3 things: simplicity, effectiveness, and rapid communication, expedited alerts out there. Is this possible? So what we've done is the world lives on geocoding right now. We geofence these properties. There's no tracking because we as police don't want to be tracked. We don't. I don't want to know where you are, Steve. You don't want to know where I am. Same thing with the teachers. The phones work, when you're on property. As you're on property, the phone always thinks you're on there until you open it up. When you open it up, when you're on vacation in Jamaica or wherever it may be, it says, "Up, you're off property." Doesn't know where you are, just knows you're not on the confines of that property. So again, going back to a simple way to design this police and psychology perspective. I'm going to pull this up here.
Yeah.
You can see that. That's how easy it is. See, there's a lot of daily features, and this is for the schools out there. Same thing for the businesses. It's just called Guard911. But God forbid there be an armed intruder. One of those teachers opens the app up, hits it. They're going to slide it and hit yes. What you're doing right now is it's linking you to 911 as a teacher. As you're waiting to speak with 911, it's already, you can see a map there that represents within about 30 feet where the shooter or the alert originated from. While you're waiting to speak with 911, it's already done 3 things, Steve. It's already alerted everyone on property with the app for their immediate code red, so they can lock down, evacuate, whatever their policies and protocols are. We know 20% of killers go mobile. We don't have time, like we saw at Park, we don't have time to be alerting all the other schools, churches, businesses. If they have the Guard 911 service, it's alerting them. They're saying there's an armed intruder alert at ABC Church or wherever it may be. And lastly, while you're still waiting to speak with 911, this is really what sets everything aside right here, Steve. There's a lot of technologies out there. Your audience, please do your due diligence out there. But really what sets this aside is that major feature. Calling 911, alerting your staff, alerting the other schools, and any officer, federal, state, or local in close proximity that has the Hero911 app. There's over 60,000 police in all 50 states, Canada, Puerto Rico, Guam. The FBI approved it a couple of years ago. If you're a Fed agent, you can only have certain approved apps on your federally issued device. They've approved Hero911 because they know they're going anyhow. Yeah. They got to get alerted. So it's going to alert these officers. They're going to acknowledge plainclothes or uniform because, again, Steve, we know there's plainclothes officers coming. If you pick up the last article that on the newspaper where there was a massacre, you're going to see more plainclothes officers than you are uniform. Yeah. The point of this app is not to get 1,000 officers there. They're coming regardless. Like we saw at Sandy Hook, they had to run some of them a quarter mile away. Okay, the point of this is to get the first 1 or 2 officers there as quick as possible. So again, Steve, recapping, it's calling 911, it's alerting your staff, it's alerting the other protected properties within 5 miles, and it's alerting all your officers in close proximity. Now, what does that mean? Close proximity in rural areas of Texas, there's 2 cops within 50 miles. We're going to alert officers 40, 50, 60 miles away, as opposed to metro areas. Again, we don't want 1,000 cops there. We're going to alert officers within about a 2 to 3 mile radius instantaneously, them and their dispatchers. Because we look at this and we revert back to Sandy Hook, the tragic massacre happened over in Connecticut. And it took 126 seconds, Steve. And this is just a sick graphic and a statistic, a proven fact. 126 seconds elapsed before police even were notified. Yeah. They got on scene very, very quickly. Very quickly they were on scene. But 126 seconds, that's because that 911 call came in and it got sent by cell towers, okay, to a different agency. They took that information in, they relayed it, it rang 6 times. They answered it, and then dispatch officers got there very quickly. So this pretty much erases that lag time. 126 seconds gone, immediate notification to your dispatchers and your local officers right there, so they can have immediate situational awareness. And I'm sure, Steve, you remember this, Andy. You teach about this. It was, again, you hate to say this, it was a simple shooting. The killer shot the window out, went in, and did a horrible thing. But you remember the telephone game we played when we were young. Yep. The amount of stress these teachers, these principals that aren't trained with this, it's extreme. The most stressful thing they'll ever go through, okay? When they're explaining to 911 what happened, or here's what they'll look like. The police officers, some of them were looking for 2 men dressed as nuns driving away in a van. Now, it just goes back to our youth, that telephone game we played where I tell something, you tell, and it gets back to the 4th person. It's totally messed up, and it was fun back then. We're in reality now, Steve. That can't happen. This has got to be an easy, simple, using the word simplicity. It's got to be effective, and it's got to have that police and psychology perspective, knowing you become colorblind with the exception of color red when you're under the most extreme stress. You lose those fine motor skills. Yeah. Again, whether it's this technology or something else we're dealing with in life, under stress, it's a must. It's got to be easy, Steve.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, is there at all a voice activation piece of that, if need be, to open the app like you would on a smartphone, or do you have to physically click on it?
We recommend they put it on their home screens, and also we have a Bluetooth capability for panic buttons as well, a desktop version. The whole thing was designed for smartphone apps, but we are advancing, of course, and meeting a lot of other demands out there from our clients, because a lot of people don't want it on their phone. They're scared of it, and that's fine. But you know what, we tell people, if you have 50 teachers on there, hey, guess what, if you have 10 people putting it on their phone, 10's better than 9. Yep. Okay, so we also are having the Microsoft laptop versions and the panic buttons as well. As a police, I'm not a big fan as a panic button in a school, because we as police, you and I, Steve, and your audience, we're going to respond differently to and tactfully park for an active shooter as we do for a fight or a sickness, because this is extreme of the extreme. So we kind of need to know what's going on. And that's exactly what the app does there. So we encourage people to put it on their home screen. You can open it up, and of course you can speak in there. The daily features you can look at. There's a teacher assist. Let's say there's a fight, non-life threatening emergency. There's a principal push feature for just daily uses, text communication, if you will. Okay. And then what's really cool is we've consolidated a 3-ring binder of an SRP there for your response protocol. What do you do for tornado, fire, earthquake, active shooter? And now it's on the palm of your hand. So you're going to evacuate as a teacher. You're going to take your wallet, your phone, your purse, and your phone. That's what you're going to do. But now you can refer back to your SchoolGuard app and see, this is what my school tells me, my reunification point, where they want me to go for this fire, for this active shooter, whatever it may be. Yeah. So it is more of a robust app, if you will. Yeah. We hope you never use the armed shooter app, but statistics are just telling us it's, again, we hope we're wrong, but it's going to be grim.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the piece of being able to review protocols and suggested protocols, just because talk a lot about just getting things in short-term memory, right? A lot of these skills and protocols and strategies, processes that we go through, they're perishable in a lot of ways. Not so much that we don't ever remember them again, but the actual steps and the things to think about. And even if it's something as simple as, hey, on Monday I open up my app and I check in one thing, what do I do in a tornado? Or the next day I check in, what do I do for a bomb threat? Next, what do I do on Wednesday? And just to be reiterating to the general public, hey, this isn't something you need to stress over for 3 hours every day. It can take just a minute or two, open it up, say, hey, let me review this real quick. And it takes that stuff out of that long-term memory and just drives it forward, like I say, in the mental file cabinet to that front drawer, that if you need to pull that file quickly, you can grab that and you can see exactly what you want to do. It's another thing, even just with the app, it's like, hey, if let alone have it on your phone, it's buried on 6 pages back on your app. Hey, just make sure you know where that is, because as we know, under stress, it's like, hey, I know I have that app on my phone, but where do I have it? That's a great front home screen place to be on something like that you're not having to go through all of those mental processes under that incredible amount of stress.
Right. Now you hit it exactly home for your public out there, your listeners out there. So, workplace violence, school, trade, it doesn't matter. This happens. It can continue to happen. And again, back to that police and psychology perspective, you drove a home there. We know exactly what to do as a child for a fire, right? We know evacuate, stop, drop, roll, whatever it may be. You remember the Fort Lauderdale, Florida massacre there, the active killer there. You saw the video. It wasn't programmed in some people's minds. And some people were 60, 70 years old. What did they do? They froze and they laid on the ground. In psychology speaking, you have in that autonomic nervous system, of course, you have your conscious mind and your subconscious mind. For your audience out here, without getting on a psychology lesson, the conscious mind is the one you make decisions with, think with, analyze with. But by more powerful, by far more powerful is that subconscious mind, which has all your things you have no control over, your heartbeat, your respirations, your eyelids going up and down. By far the more powerful mind's pushing that conscious mind out of the way. So when tragedy strikes, when stress happens, you're involved in a fire, consciously, you aren't making a decision because guess what? It's in your subconscious. You know exactly what to do without even doing it. You look at Fort Lauderdale Airport, nothing was in the subconscious. What did they do? Consciously, they couldn't pull anything like you were mentioning, Steve.
Yep.
And they laid down, they froze. You pull up this app or you pull up something, you have a workplace meeting for violence. What are we going to do? God forbid this ever happens here. Not to mention the liability you as a corporate or someone in the C-suite needs to do in your organization, not a week-long class, but to bring it up. A syllabus, not a PowerPoint, not a three-ring binder of stuff. But guess what, folks? If this happens, this is what we're going to do. This is what you should do. So now, guess what? That little nugget is in your subconscious mind. Hopefully, you'll never use it. But if you do, guess what? You're going to know what to do without doing it consciously. And that's exactly what we need to continue to train our people out there.
Yeah, and you might be able to speak to this at greater depth. I know, are you familiar with Safe Haven International? That they're a large group that studies a lot of these violent encounters. But I remember reading from them putting out how when they would put people through simulations, particularly teachers in general, and they would have a simulated exercise where they would have a gunman maybe approach from the playground area. A lot of the teachers, because of what's unfortunately been ingrained, they would just run out there and attack the person in that hero mentality, as we would say. But one of the key things that's missing from that is before any direct action is taken, there has to be a notification action that happens first. Not only notifying first responders, but notifying the people inside the building, because nothing positive can begin to happen until you let the masses know what's going on. And that's when I first encountered your app, was looking at some research like that, where people were trying to go direct to threat and stop an encounter, and then if they are overcome, now what's the next person that can be stopped? And so that person, the perpetrator, may actually access that building prior to any notification. Then it relies on that next person. Now you're closer to children and innocents. And the faster notification happens across the board, and I know I'm just reiterating and driving that home, is so important. And I constantly hear in trainings that I do as well, what is something just simple? I know all these detail things. What can I do? And that's what I think the draw is to this type of technology for me.
Yeah, no, you said it right. And again, there's some trainings out there that I disagree with. Some of them are getting awards out there. By no means on an open playground should be running and being Superman out there. Again, I applaud the quote unquote heroes that are safeguarding their students and whatnot. But there's measures we need to do. There's different things with the run, hire, and fight we see. That's your resort. That's your last resort. God forbid someone comes in your room. Of course, we're gonna fight and attack. We're gonna safeguard ourselves. And we know this in training and getting the word out there. But to be running after someone and chasing someone, that's it for another time, different discussion. I would disagree with that. However, the notification is what is first and foremost. Again, we've got to get our school locked down. How are we going to do it? Are we going to rely on PA systems? Are we going to rely on camera systems where there's 50 cameras and you have someone monitoring all 50 cameras? Now, I'm a fan of cameras, but Steve, they're completely useless unless, number one, they're in real time and they're not lag time or delayed. And secondly, you have someone monitoring those cameras, which is physically impossible all day long, every single camera. And then again, that telephone game is going to ensue again. As police officers, we have some technologies that are out there that will live stream a camera to your school, right to your phone. In theory, it sounds good, but in reality, is it practical? As a police officer myself, if I'm responding, even being biased to our app, I'm going to get the alert and I'm going to put the phone down. I'm going to call in, check the validity, and get there and take care of business, hopefully mitigate the threat. I'm not going to have time to be looking as I'm driving, by all means, at a phone or a camera or a picture, and then try with all the stress and that tunnel vision you have as a police officer. The most stressful incident we'll ever be involved in is an active shooter trying to look at a screen on a 3x6 inch. It just doesn't make sense.
Right.
It comes down to, it's got to be simple. It can't be the smorgasbord menu. We've got to get alerted as police, as first responders, and get on scene as safely and quick as possible. That's what's going to, save lives. We know that, these are going to happen again. It's to think that they're being planned out right now. Well, of course, we're all about trying to deter these. I think see something, say something on that is fantastic. Social media is another channel we've got to continue to investigate. These threats are out there. These killers will say something. We've got to follow up on there. So many of them have been stopped. It's fantastic. The police are doing a fantastic job out there. But for that silent one, we've got to get our police officers notified. And they got to get there. It can't be another Sandy Hook where it's 126 seconds delay.
Yeah. No, that's exactly what we're trying to cut down on, and this is one path to actually do that. Now, practically speaking, so for anybody that might be listening that's not familiar, even to the extent that I am with the app, so you have a officer sign up, and you also have what would be a teacher or education facility sign up. They're two separate things. Can you flesh that out a little bit?
Absolutely.
The difference of those?
And let's just don't look at the schools. Company's called Guard911. Okay. We protect businesses, hospitals across the country, corporations, plants, churches, and then we have college campus Guard911, which is a subsidiary, just branded differently. Does the same thing, college and universities, and then School Guard is under the umbrella of Guard911, and that's K through 12. Again, they all do the same thing. They're just branded differently. So schools, businesses, churches would implement the Guard911 service, the activator, if you will. It has a lot of those daily features we spoke about. The major feature we hope you never use is reporting an armed intruder, not an active shooter, an armed intruder, because psychology, again, could be a knife, could be a machete, could be a baseball bat. Again, doesn't matter to us. We've got to get our first responders notified. So they have the activator, and then the receiver is the police network called Hero911. Again, that's really what sets this technology aside. We met Tim Campos when he was the CFO or COO, I believe, of Facebook headquarters several years ago. And he said, this is during our patent time, 2013, 2014, hey, we can make this in Silicon Valley overnight. What you guys got that we can't even do at Facebook is you have that network of police. That network of police, we can't build that. And we knew that going into it. So, but we took his word. I mean, of a huge company they are. So to date, we have over 60,000 federal, state, and local officers that have downloaded Hero911. It's a free app. Like I mentioned earlier, the feds have approved it, whitelisted it for federal download on federally issued devices. Only app of its kind. It's available on Google and Apple. Of over 2.2 million apps in the Apple App Store alone, Hero911 is the only app Apple has ever approved where there's a police vetting phase. So we have some officers on our team, they're chief law enforcement consultants on Guard911. Their sole job is to do the vetting process of Hero911 and to communicate with our police channels and association across the country. So just a powerful, powerful network. So again, the activator, Guard911, the receiver is the Hero911. Now, Hero911, we hope your app never goes off, but for some app relevance out there, because it's only going to go off with the bells and whistles that you heard earlier, if you happen to be in close proximity to one of our protected Guard911 properties in your immediate area, then you're going to know, wow, something's going on. Immediately before 911 picks up, you're going to know that you're in close proximity of an active shooter. Hoping, Steve, that'll never go off. And to keep the app relevant, we do so many things. There's something out there we call nationwide situational awareness messaging system, because in the police world, there's an acronym for everything, right? So NSAMS. So anytime we hear of something, and this is a little confusion to the officers until they look into it. So the major alert, it's going on, and it's going on right now. instantaneously. But whenever we hear something like the one in Wisconsin, the casino shooting a couple days ago, we check the validity of that, and we heard through the news. We send it to everyone. Right now, all 60,000 officers in the network, we say, FYI, we'll put a message out. If you weren't already privy to the attack that's happened in Wisconsin, tune into our Facebook or local news. There's a possible massacre going on, active shooter. So that goes out to everyone, and FYI only, not an alert, where the major alert just goes to a small pool of audience of officers who are in close proximity. So that's the differential between those two.
Okay.
And again, we give so much back. We do ambush classes. There's a class out there that's fantastic. We sent 20 officers nationwide that had to be part of the Hero 911 network, which again is free, exclusive to police out there. And we said, hey, give us a one sentence why you want to attend this class. Room and board, food. We put the red carpet out for them. We flew in 20 officers around the country, and we put them through a 3-day, really aggressive class. They're shooting out through windows. They're running and jumping because, again, it's our job to give back. And these, our police, you and I, so many police ambushes out there. We've got to prepare ourselves. Just like this, if you don't know what to do, you're going to freeze. So much we do are giving back as well with our strategic partners.
Absolutely. When you hit this button, whether you're a teacher or whether you're law enforcement also activating it, whatever the case may be, and you activate that, does the community 911 center have to be an e-center to get that notification? Where I know there's this large transition to e-notification through 911 centers, which most have made, but I have to believe there's some that have a lag in that. Are they still receiving some type of update through the app when that gets activated if someone's not able to place a call?
Yeah, great question, Steve. So it comes down to the PSAP Center, the Public Service Answering Points out there. They are all, coming up to speed and doing the E911 and stuff like that. Our service does not integrate right now into the CAD system, the computer aided dispatch out there. Mm-hmm. However, we say this is exclusive to police officers. Dispatchers, obviously working in the police world, they download the app too. So again, we encourage the dispatchers to have the app so they're going to get the alert just as your police officers are in close proximity. So again, we go to Sandy Hook. That phone call came in and it rang the agency over. Okay. Mm-hmm. The dispatchers that eventually dispatched the officers of Sandy Hook didn't even know about it yet. So if we take that situation, God forbid that happens again, that phone call might go somewhere else. But guess what? The 911 or the Hero 911 alert is going to reach your dispatchers instantaneously so they can start programming, entering it, and dispatching the officers who have already got the Hero 911 alert as well, while they're waiting for that 911 call to be either relayed, transferred, or for it to ring.
Absolutely. So with I'm thinking of just average Joe out there, right? He's trying to do his best with getting up to speed on the possible threats that exist out there. He can just go to his app store. He can search for the app. He can get that app on his phone. And if versus looking at an officer, when they want to sign up for an app as an officer, they would have to send their credentials in. Is that correct? And that's that vetting process you were talking about?
Yeah, let's back up for the average Joe out there, so there's no inadvertent activation. So, businesses, hospitals, churches, schools, colleges, whoever it may be, clients of Guard911, they would call in and we would set up an agreement with them, of course, and we would build their geofence. So anyone, Steve, you could, anyone, that average Joe could go download Guard911, but it's useless to them because they have to put their name in and an activation code. So the activation code that comes upon sign up, and it's unique and only associated with that school or church or business that have signed up. So again, the church, they have the service, and the school next door, it's not universal. So if you're at the church and go to the school, you couldn't set alarm off at the school. You as a church or hospital have leased the service. You have the service, so it's unique, and it only works on your respective property through your activation codes that are given on setup. The police download the app. Again, anyone can download Hero 911, but that becomes useless as well until you go through our vetting phase. And it's simple. We ask for your government email address and or a picture of your credentials. When that's submitted that way, we will vet you. Now, what happens if someone fools us and they sneak by and get it? Well, great, they're in the Hero 911 system, but again, it's totally useless unless you happen to be in close proximity to the worst of the worst going on by one of our protected properties.
Right.
But we're good custodians of our vetting process and from filtering that out.
Yeah, that answers it perfect. That drives home. I really want the audience to have a clear understanding of this. That there's nothing that we're leaving out, because this is vital to saving lives. That response time. I think Alert uses the 3-minute response time, but we always say that caveat is once there's notification. Who knows the 10 minutes prior to that or the 2 minutes prior to that? That's once first responders have been notified. And even when we look at integrated response and we look at communication to that location and how we have, within first responders in general, we know getting radios on the same frequencies and different channels and technology there. So this really cuts right to the heart and tries to cut down on that time, which is really cool. And I want organizations to be able to know to say, hey, go to your administrators or to your pastors, and to be able to say, hey, this technology exists and we need to look into this a little more. And so where would we send someone? Do they call in, or is on the website, does that have everything they would need to be able to integrate their business or their organization to be part of a network?
Yeah, absolutely, Steve. And you hit it on the back, rewinding a little bit, that notification versus response time. And, Department of Homeland Security said, several years back, it's about a 15 to 18-minute response time. And we had a lot of chiefs saying, oh my gosh, that's not going to happen here. Well, what we don't understand is that's everything. That's your notification time, that tactical time, that response time, all in one. It's not that's the response time. It's everything coming in play, like you mentioned. The notification time. And we've gotten better as police. Of course, that the response time is now down quite a bit. It's because we're getting better with notification time. And that's what transforms this whole thing into a quicker police on-scene time is what it is. So yes, all about notification. Yeah, to learn more, if you go to guard911.com, I'd encourage your audience, the mandatory training video. This is how easy it is. It's up on our navigation bar. It says training. It's 6 minutes and I think 19 seconds long. That's the training video. We don't go to Alaska or Florida or Colorado to do hands-on training. Again, police and psychology perspective, very, very easy out here. You watch the training and it shows you exactly how it works from the major feature to the daily features. More information, you can get on there, send in an inquiry, an email form, or you can call me. And my number's on the site. I can give it to you right now. It's 618-973-9174. We pick that up 24/7. So you feel free to give me a call anytime, but do your due diligence out there. There's a lot of good things that you're seeing, to safeguard your community, safeguard your church, your school, your business. This is just one of them. It starts with understanding the viable threat. So if you do want any information, your audience out there, again, look at Guard911, fill out the form, and we'll have one of our guys and gals contact you. But encourage your police audience for sure. If they aren't already privy to Hero911, please download the app. It comes down to this. If you're a cop, would you want to know if you're in close proximity to our country's #1 act of domestic terrorism, being an active killer? If so, download the app. It's free. Yeah. Cops love free stuff, right? Our motto is, if it's free, it's for me, and I'll take 3.
There we go.
Right? This is free. Download the app. That's you. Welcome into our network.
Hey, no, that's awesome. It's widely available. Now, for organizations, is there a cost associated with getting your network or your organization on board?
Yeah, there is. So again, free for the police, the businesses, schools, churches. There's a one-time only setup fee. Depending on the number of properties, it could be discounted under omnibus agreement. But let's say there's one property that signs up, $1,000 one-time setup fee. We create your unique geofence where your apps only work on property. And then as little as $99 a month is what it would be for schools, for churches, businesses. If there's more buildings, it may be a little more, but it's very cost effective. We wanted to make it that way. So, in the real of things, if you have 600 people on a property, $99 a month, unlimited users. Okay, we're dealing with lives. It's not a package deal. That's how simple it is. You're looking at about a quarter a penny a person a day. So we wanted to do this to make a difference and save lives out there. And we know that that price point's appreciated. It covers a lot of the cost of the technology and getting it out there in our team, of course. So Yes, very, very affordable.
Yeah, that absolutely is, especially with unlimited users. You always see in these subscription packages and things, there's a lot that goes into the scale and rating of that. Now, is it possible that if there's a bunch of small businesses, say maybe like in a small mall complex, businesses could get together and create a geofence for a property? Is there, I'm just trying to think outside the box in ways to make sure that this is getting to the largest amount of people. Is that something they can do, or is it connected to a sole property, a sole business?
No, that's a great question. So we create multiple geofence, and we have something similar to that in a rural area in Colorado. I won't say where it is, but very rural area in Colorado, kind of their plaza. There's like, I think 20 or 30 businesses, and we've linked geofences around every single one of them.
Right
so
on.
The barber has their activation codes. The pharmacist has his or hers. So their whole community's protected there. So, we can do anything out there. Again, we can get you up and running in a matter of a day. That's how fast it is.
Wow. Okay.
With Alyssa's law passing in Florida, there's 3,637 schools out there that are mandated to have a mobile alert safety system by the start of August 1st, I believe. We can turn 1,000 properties on a month. That's how fast this can be. And now with being verified through FirstNet by AT&T, I don't know if you're familiar or if your audience is familiar with that. Yeah. FirstNet is gone huge. And with the power, being backed by AT&T, we've been verified. And we work with now the FirstNet company.
Fantastic, yeah.
Yeah, they put us in their catalog. So the apps are in the FirstNet catalog now. All 4 of our apps. That's Guard 911, School Guard, Campus Guard 911, and Hero911. They went through a stringent process and they vetted them out. So, again, honored to be part of that association as well.
Hey, that's great. I'm no expert in the AT&T FirstNet setup, but to simplify, if there are first responders out there that aren't familiar with that, I know they're expanding that even into nursing as well. I think that's only in certain areas at this point, but it's growing. But I think the main benefit there that you get is under an extreme chaotic or emergency situation, there's no throttling that happens to that network, that there's priority given on the network to the first responders, which is huge. When we look at major catastrophic incidents in certain areas, that became one of the most problematic thing in communication is the network gets overrun. There's actually, I'll just say so, this is simplifying it in layman's terms. Any experts out there want to weigh in and put something up in the comments, feel free, but it's basically creating headroom that if the network is being maxed out, it allots for a amount of traffic to exist within the first responder community to make sure that life-saving communication is happening.
Right, absolutely. And that's, we see so many calls being dropped and abandoned with 911 because, let's say a rural community, you got 1 or 2 dispatchers and you got, 50 or 60 calls coming through. Number one, that's why they're being dropped or being abandoned. FirstNet takes that priority, like you mentioned. Another, non-life threatening emergency example is, we all go to, hopefully we're all going to start going to sports events again.
Yeah.
Everyone's texting and using data. You ever wonder why your data is so slow? Guess what? If you're with FirstNet, you can text and data away because you are at the top of the top. So you can look at your buddy and just happen to tell him to get on FirstNet.
Yeah, your meme can go viral first. There you go. Yeah. So, no, that's good. You mentioned it. Would you talk about this? Was groundbreaking legislation that happened in Florida that you all got to be a part of. I take it there's probably some level of expectation that probably other states will be following suit in something like this if there are administrators and things listening out there. Can you explain a little bit more about this law that was passed and how you became involved in it?
Yeah, sure. No, so Alyssa's law came from the Parkland massacre. Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, Alyssa Eldoff was one of the 17 that was innocently killed by this ruthless killers. Again, methodically and systematically planned this ridiculous attack out. Alyssa's mother and father were instrumental, relentless pursuit to pass legislation. It all come down to notification, like it did at Parkland, like it did at Sandy Hook, like it did at umpteen others that happened. It comes down to, and they understand the viable threat. They unfortunately lived it. It's got to get to police officers as quick as possible to save these senseless acts of violence from happening, to save additional lives lost out here. So they passed Alyssa's law. And what that does is they've mandated the state of Florida, every school, K through 12 charter school, is mandated to implement a mobile alert safety system by the start of school for instantaneous and immediate alerts to police and to schools for situational awareness, so they can have that immediate code red lockdown. So your dispatchers and your police officers immediately get notified without going through all the channels And that lag time at Sandy Hook, 126 seconds, again, unacceptable. We can't tolerate that anymore. We can't do it. Of course, our family of dispatchers are great. Our 911 coordinators, school safety specialists, we're one big family with first responders. We've all got to get it notified immediately. So other states are no doubt already looking at this. New York, New Jersey, Oklahoma, Nebraska, Arizona, I think, is looking at it. Texas is looking at it. There's no doubt other states that are going to emulate the good legislation, a bill that was passed in Florida. Money's already been earmarked aside from Governor Santos there for this proactive measure, this initiative in Florida. I think it's already been proposed in D.C. by Lori with Alyssa's law out there. So we just forward think. We know this is a way to help improve communications. Being part of FirstNet, just the premier of the premier out there, we know that they're going to pick this up and they're going to be instrumental in communications, because that's what it all comes down to. If you look at the common conclusion, once again, at every single one of these, it's a shorter police notification time can and will save lives. So we know that there's no doubt Alyssa's law is going to be passed pretty much nationwide. I would look at it being really progressive in the next 5 years.
Yeah, man, that's phenomenal. Now, are students allowed to have this app on their phone as well if they're part of that geofence?
We encourage they do not. Ultimately, it's left up to what's called a gatekeeper as far as our technology. Okay. We assign what's called a site administrator or a gatekeeper, whether it's a superintendent, maybe a couple of them, a principal, secretary, where he or she would go ahead and add and delete users. Very, very simple. Again, just like onboarding, they simply uncheck their name. If they retire, resign, move on, they may always have the app, but it deactivated. Okay. We encourage them not to put in all our schools across the country. I don't think there's any students on there. We encourage them not to for the obvious factors that the inadvertent activations, the playing around, the calling wolf out there. We don't want that.
Absolutely.
The whole goal is to get our alerts out as quick as possible to the police, where we know that the students in the past, a lot of times they're beating us to the punch here. They're notifying the parents, like Sandy Hook again. I hate to go back to that. But the parents showed up at Sandy Hook, and that created that gridlock, and that created the law enforcement officers that had to park and run about a quarter mile away.
Absolutely.
Because, these kids are great with the Twitter and everything. And God forbid this happens in my kid's school. My daughter, of course, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going. Okay. But we've got to beat this. We've got to get technology in the forefront out there. And have these teachers and staff understand this is simple technology. You do not need to be tech savvy for this. It is simple, and immediately notify our first responders.
Yeah, and I love how the infrastructure is already in place. That's, I think, what is so beautiful about this. You're not asking these organizations to go out and bring in all this infrastructure. It's like it's right there. We all have it on us at all times, and I think that's what's so beautiful about this is that it's rapidly getting into the hands. There's not this large lead up to bring in something like this that we absolutely can see out saving lives. Do you have any success stories or data or anything that you've actually seen direct use of the app where you've been able to correlate response times? And do you have any back end that you're able to look at that and say, hey, here's some real-time examples of the benefit of this?
Yeah, a few of them. So of the daily features that people use all the time, there's in Georgia, they've used it for a bomb threat, actually. That thank goodness it was not a bomb, but there was a suspicious package. They used the daily feature for a bomb threat. They were evacuate. They used it for a child in California where his parent came to school, drunk, belligerent. Apparently there's an ongoing thing of this. They know it. And they said, hey, we're using the teacher assist. Johnny's dad's on property again. The police are en route. Don't release Johnny to his father. Another school in Florida, they could not find, at a big school, there was an autistic child that kind of strayed away. They could not find him. They said, we just got the service. Let's use it. They were able to track the child down and safely bring him back to the family in 5 minutes. So the daily features, yes. The major feature in rural Florida, a school in rural Florida, there was two gentlemen on property, one shooting a weapon. Again, let me preface it. We don't know the intent. It was probably innocent of nature, very rural area, farm, a hunting area out there. And they say, when they were talking with the school district, the average response time for police is 15, 20 minutes because of a fight or whatnot. If they have to go to the school. The teacher saw two gentlemen, one shooting a weapon in the air. Again, probably innocent of nature, but we don't know. They activated school guard. First officer was on scene in 3 minutes, and they actually got in a foot pursuit with the gentleman, arrested him. No further incident. We like to think it's not going to be an active shooter, but the teachers were aware of it. Now, I will tell you this. Of our thousands of properties we have live across the country in schools, businesses, churches, since 2013, we've had 16 false alarms. False alarms are going to happen, but we do through measures here so you can't inadvertently activate it. Of the 16 false alarms, Steve, 15 came from a teacher who did not watch the training video, that 6-minute video. 15 of the 16 came from that. One of them was a school, literally 10 minutes away. It's hard for me to say this, but it's 10 minutes away from Parkland. About 6 months prior to the Parkland massacre, this school had an inadvertent activation from a teacher who did not watch the training video. If you remember the statistics at the Parkland massacre, the police officers, with the exception of organizing, the officers didn't go in. The first officers that got there was 7 to 9 minutes. If you look at the FBI report, depending on how in depth you get, 7 to 9 minutes before they were on scene. Our first alarm, the same responding officers were the same responding officers at Parkland, the same, not the exact same officers, but the same department. They were on scene at the false alarm. In a minute and 30 seconds, they were on the doorstep to that. They immediately understood it was a false alarm.
So important, yeah.
A minute 30 to 7 to 9 minutes. So we don't consider that a success story at all. We don't want false alarms to happen, but it works. Again, simplicity, effectiveness, and rapid, expedited alerts. Your viewers, I encourage you to send in comments, because I'd like to know how to enhance this technology to the best. But it's been proven effective, and it's simple, and it needs to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, what's next? What are you visioning that you're able to share? Is there anything out there that you envision that you want to take this to the next level, to continue to innovate and make it better for all the users?
Yeah, there's some things we got on the whiteboard that we're going to enhance the Hero911 network to continue to benefit the police network out there. Again, we're under attack as a country here in the police world. We need to continue to back our brothers and sisters in blue, and we're doing everything we can to possibly enhance the app, put on some more classes out there, some more trainings. It all comes down with understanding the viable threat in the private sector and the schools. We've had one situation where a gentleman purchased a service, and I won't name the school. It's really frustrating. They purchased the service for the school, and the superintendent looked at us and said, well, if it's free, we're going to take it. Mind you, it's about a quarter of a penny a person a day. If it's free, we're going to take it, but it's not like it's going to happen here. And I can't believe in today's world we think that. You look at Frank DeAngelis. Frank would say the same thing. This is not going to happen in Columbine. I would have said, this is Columbine. We're Columbine strong. It's not going to happen here. Chief Tony Pastisi said, Coral Springs, it's not going to happen here. Parkland was one of the safest cities in the country, and they had one of the worst high school massacres ever. Brian Murphy in Oak Creek, Wisconsin, he worked on Sunday. He said, I'm going to sit on the couch and do nothing. Nothing happens on Sunday. The Sikh Temple Massacre. Brian Murphy, who's going to be on your podcast soon, Steve, your listeners are going to love him. He got shot 15 times during the Sikh Temple Massacre. It's not going to happen here. Those words need to be flushed. It's if and when it's going to happen, more importantly, because we need to be prepared, not only as police, obviously, but as community. We don't need to be scared, like you mentioned earlier. We don't need to be locked down and have barbed wire and bulletproof everything, the desks and the backpacks. I think, in my opinion, that's a little extreme, but we got to understand the threat we're faced against. And again, this is our country's #1 act of domestic terrorism. Do we all understand that? And if not, we need to. Just look at something for 30 seconds. Put that nugget in your subconscious is all I'm asking. You don't need to be a professional. You don't need to be a police officer. You don't need to write your thesis on school safety, but you do know understand this like you understand what to do during a fire.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, so well said. What do we say to the teachers that are going to hear this, or the church members that are going to hear this? And like any technology, buy-in is often our biggest roadblock of being able to articulate this. Do any of your team or you, or is there, what resource can be available to say, hey, when you have a citizen that wants to go to their boss or to their church and be like, I want to tell you about this, but I don't necessarily know how to articulate it perfectly, but for the reasons you just mentioned, we need this here.
Yeah.
What's the best way for someone listening to go about that conversation?
Well, it's number one, tuning into your great podcast that you do, Steve. I know you got a lot of experts across the country. Obviously, me not being one of them, but you have a lot of dynamic people on. If you a lot of people revert back to our website, guard911.com. We have a lot of blogs. We had a great marketing team that spells this stuff out, not only in the active killer situations or active shootings, but what do we do? What else can you do to safeguard your schools, safeguard your businesses, threat assessments out there? There's so many things we can do and look at. And a lot of corporations understand that, oh my gosh, here's something new. No one likes anything new. We get that, but we need to adapt. We need to adapt to the new world, just like we have with COVID. We've adapted. No one likes wearing masks, I wouldn't think. My wife loves it because she hasn't got a cold. But besides her, she's an anomaly. I don't like to wear the mask, but we do. We've adopted to that, okay? Now, matter of fact, you're walking in Costco, you cough, God forbid you cough, or you don't have your mask on, you're getting looked at. Whereas opposed to years ago, you had that mask on and people are going to look at you differently. Mm-hmm. So same thing with this. We need to adopt and understand. We need to embrace the world of technology. You don't have to be an expert. You don't have to be totally scared of this, but you do as a citizen in the community, as a school, as a business, whatever. You need to understand that this happens and it's going to happen again. And what can you do to safeguard yourself, to safeguard employees? Are you going to be that deer in the headlights and freeze because there's nothing in that subconscious? Or can you communicate and tell your friends, share the information about the app? So I would encourage you as a citizen going out to your hospital, your administration, your safety director, and it's just starting by what are we doing for workplace violence to combat that, or a safety seminar, or what are we doing for school safety in our school district, in our community, or school boards? Have you heard of School Guard, Hero911? Becoming advocates with the police agencies across the country, the sheriff's associations. And it really takes it's a consortium of people that have gotten together and understand this. It's just not our company. It's the advocates we have out there. If you look at our dynamic team, it's what they've done, what they've been through, the true experts out there that know and then that preach this every single day, that this is a war we're fighting. And we've got to continue to mitigate it. And when it does strike, what are we going to do? So I would encourage, again, your staff members or your listeners, rather, if they're part of their staff, to go to the hospital, go to the business, go to that church, and just simply bring it up. You don't have to be a professional. You don't have to write a thesis on this, but you do need to understand that this could happen. And how can you safeguard yourself at your church, at your school? And it all comes down to understanding.
Yeah, man, well said, Nate. What do we miss? What do you, that person out there or someone on the fence, or just give us a final thought of all the details we talked about today. Simplify it for us. Why do we need this?
Yeah, because we're in a war, Steve. And I know we let everyone drink from the fire hose today. I hope it wasn't too overwhelming. But the thing is, you got to understand it's simple. Whatever technology, whether it's our app service or something else out there, if you implement, it's got to be simple. The way that mind works out there. Again, you ask why? Because we're in a war. This country is a free country. People are fighting and dying to get into our country. But guess what? We've got to do something. We can continue the debate on guns all year round, for the next 10 years, pro, against, whatever. It's the same thing as narcotics. Narcotics are illegal out there, but we get, cocaine and fentanyl and everything else smuggled illegally. It's still going to happen. These killers are systematically and methodically planning their attacks weeks, if not months in advance. They're looking for that one thing, Steve. They're looking for that body count. Mm-hmm. We've got to stop it. We got to continue to stay tuned into social media. We're living by social media out there. Continue to see something, say something. And what can we do to safeguard our teachers? We can empower them. We can empower them by the thing they have every single day. 15 years ago, teachers, you had phones. 10 years ago, some schools right now, you have phones, but you couldn't use them during school. Staff and superintendents understand, hey, guess what? Teachers have emergency now. Don't abuse it, but you can use your texts. You can use your emails. Don't abuse it by any means, but God forbid something happen. We need you to communicate. How are you going to do it at school? How are you going to do it at church? How are you going to do it at business? The ultimate goal is getting the lockdown and getting your officers there as quick as possible. And how do we do that? We've built this thing, psychology and police perspective, is easy, simple, effective, expedited alerts out there to your dispatchers and your police officers, because we know that common conclusion. We may not be able to prevent these from happening, but when they do, we've got to get our first responders notified as quick as possible.
Yeah. Well said, brother. Man, the evil that exists, it's going to continue to exist, and we've got to be able to have the courage to face it and to mitigate it in the best way possible. And it takes everyone to do it. It takes our first responders, it takes our civilians to step up and do that. And that is happening. I don't want to diminish the fact that we're losing, because there's so many good people that are willing to stand in the gap and to take this stuff head on. This is a tool. Look, these are complex issues. They're changing, right? That's part of the problem. They're so dynamic. They're constantly evolving threats, and we need to be able to adapt to them. And I am just fully on board with what you're doing, man. Anything that I'm able to do as a podcast to help you guys, I look forward to the conversations that are going to be upcoming with your team members as we continue to get this word out and just help people prepare in a multitude of ways, right? If we can attack this from a lot of different angles, using a tool like this is one way, mindset is another way, other protocols and systems, they're another way. And the more information we can provide to make people more resilient in the face of these just horrific acts of evil, I want a place at the table to be able to do that, and I'm so glad to have you right alongside with me, brother. So I can't thank you enough for coming on and sharing this message about your app, about your network, your team, and just your heart for caring for these communities. So thank you again, and continue to just be pressing forward and doing what you're doing, brother.
I appreciate it, Steve, and again, honored to be part of the podcast today. And again, encourage your police officer audience to download Hero911. It's free, exclusive to police. And I'll leave you with the quote we started with from Albert Einstein, and it goes along the lines of the world's a dangerous place. It's filled with evil, right? Our world is filled with evil. It's not because of the people who are evil. It's because of the people who don't do anything about it. Steve, we've got to understand this threat we're faced against. We've got to do something about it. America's a great country. It's a free country, land of the free, right?
That's right.
We're going to get through everything in the police world. We're going to get through it, but we've got to do something about it. If we sit there and do nothing, we're going to get attacked. As police, as first responders, as legislators, as a community, active killers, we've got to do something about it. So I thank you very much for having me on, Steve. It's been a true pleasure. Wish you the best success and safety to yourself, sir.
Hey, thank you so much, man. I look forward to the future and seeing what you're doing with your whole organization and business, man. Thank you.
Thank you.